Hello, today I have some Dead Walker zombies. First off, I'll be taking out some of the sprue goo I have to put some of their heads back on. This is Tamiya Extra Thin Cement. I've taken the wrapper off and mostly used Games Workshop plastic for the plastic element of sprue goo. A unique issue I've had with this kit is that the head connection has been insufficient with plastic cement alone. I'll either have to pin these in the future or keep gluing them on. I plan to take out some oil paints to make an all over brown wash to apply to the zombies just to add a little more depth and color variety. Unfortunately, I never came up with a plan for these zombies. Every time I take out paint to touch something up, I'll usually bring out the zombies and hit them as well, since I'm already staged for painting. I've added a little too much sprue goo, as you saw, in the neck area. So now I have a clear plastic cement that I will use to clean up the connection. I hope you can see, but throughout all of these applications, the sprue goo included, I've used very soft touches with the included applicator from the Tamiya Extra Thin Cement. Here are all of my oil paints. This metal dish I got from Amazon. Here is the included mixing spoon, an odorless paint thinner, pipette from Amazon. That's to pick up the paint thinner to put in the dish. And I'm just, since I have these out, I'm making some little greebly bits to put on bases of some of my bigger models. These are supposed to be blown up parts from the Space Bears. My opponent plays this army. I don't have a real technique. I just watched a couple YouTube videos and now putting what I learned to the test with thin washes. I'm just gonna grab a small amount of this brown paint to put inside of the dish as the base of my mixes. I'm making a light brown wash first to go on the separated Space Bear bits. As you'll see later, I'm just going with whatever comes to mind and trying to stay flexible. I don't have any ratios in mind. I'm just adding until the mix is thin enough to work with easily. The mix is going everywhere the same way you would do a base coat. I apologize for the bit being partially off the screen. Just going for one even application with an angled brush. The brush I'm using has had quite a bit of use, so a sharp tip is not something I'm concerned about. You would see a lot of use out of using a temporary painting handle, something like gluing a toothpick to this bit, or later, I use a thin copper wire to hold up a different piece. Due to its small size, I had drilled in an insertion point for the wire. It helped immensely. This is what I was saying when I didn't have a plan. I'm adding black to the mixture now to make more of a traditional wash because the brown and white coat was too flat. And I did this right after, so there's no time to dry. And we have some smudging as the previous paint was wiped off. After I let it dry, I hope it adds more to surface variation, but if I don't like it, I will just change it later. I've cleaned off my brush with some of the odorless mineral spirits. And now with the brown paint, I'm just going to add brown to the wood parts of the models. But later, I changed my mind on this and just use the thin brown wash everywhere. The gray and white parts are oil paints. I've added those a couple weeks ago, and they've had this long to dry. I haven't added any varnish on the oil steps, and I haven't had any issues with unintentional blending. Now I'm doing a little bit of cleanup with the brush, and on the tree part, establishing some highlights by wiping off a little of the paint on the surface. I didn't get the opacity I wanted on the tree branches here coming through his body, and that's what had first prompted me to do the all over wash. This is just the burnt umber thinned down into a wash consistency. I just kept mixing in the paint thinner until I had a consistency I liked. One that was very thin and easy to come off the brush. I'm working on the back first as a low visibility point in case the wash was too thick. It's very thin here. For a first application, I would recommend the back of the leg or the back of the shoe. The bare back would have been too visible had the paint been too thick. And it goes everywhere. Smooth application once over on everything. And you can see it's not too thin. So a nice filter running towards the crevices. I've previously hit all these models with a primer, an airbrush of beige red, a purple wash, and a flat red. On a couple models, I did their clothes and skin, but most of them have the faded red color. I grab more models and mix up a little more wash. This is the thinness I ended with, adding a brush full of thinner at a time. I haven't even done the hair on this model. I might pick it out later, or I might rely on the oil wash. The purple weapons, I picked that just to be a high contrast color to the rest of the paint scheme, but the wash has washed that out a little bit. The green, blue, and purple are from the Vince Venturella Pro Acryl Signature Set. They're Payne's Gray, Royal Purple, and Dark Yellow Green. And I've only just now noticed that piece of sprue by her ankle I forgot to clean up. If it's been this long since I've noticed it, I might just keep it there. I sped up the footage on this section since we generally know how applying wash looks like. I added the gray oil paint onto his skin as a test. I had meant to paint over it, but as we could see, I didn't do that. I was worried how this was gonna turn out, but it turns out fine. Here I've gotten some paint out in order to do the rocky bases they're standing on. The reason I've chosen to do a gray stone base with the oil paint is just for practice. I start off with the black paint in order to get some blending practice later with a gray mix and then a white mix. I'm not a big fan of doing bases, so the last one, and you'll see on other ones, when I'm done, I'm done. On to the next. I sculpted the rocky terrain with Milliput. The textures, there's no real plan. I just was looking for a variation. I sculpted these with Vaseline and metal sculpting tools. After I sculpted them, I had tried putting on a green wash, but I didn't first remove the Vaseline. So it just kind of pulled up like that. That, however, was a couple weeks ago, and the oil paint stuck fine. Now I have a gray mix ready in order to make a midtone for the stone bases. I have varying levels of success on establishing the midtone. Hopefully, we'll see some good examples. With the oil paints, I'm just kind of going for it, and I hope that's the lesson you take away from this. Just kind of go for it. It was mostly a learning experience, and I think they turned out fine.